Hey guys, it's Whitney with Design to Heal. Today I want to talk about something I've been seeing a lot of right now, which is flaring. And it makes sense, during the holidays, this is really common when you're in recovery for things to get louder. There's more stress, there's higher stakes, there's more triggers, family dynamics. And also, we fall out of our natural rhythm and routine that can bring safety to the nervous system during the holidays because everybody's schedules are different, people are off work, and there's a lot more interacting with others or opportunities to interact with other people. And all of these things can basically just increase the likelihood of our nervous system detecting a threat and sensations getting louder. But this video isn't really about analyzing why does it happen. It's more about normalizing what happens during a flare. That's what I want to talk about. And it's a great time for me to talk about it because I've actually been experiencing an uptick in symptoms myself. And I've been experiencing some old stuff coming up that I have not experienced in a long time. It's been an interesting opportunity for me to be curious and observe what this is like to have this happening and share with you how I've been responding and just kind of how to navigate this when it happens. The first thing I really want to normalize is when there is a intensity in your sensations and they have risen, and your sensations, be it pain, other symptoms, anxiety, depression, insomnia, whatever it is that you're experiencing that is higher and more intense, I want to name this because I think this is really important. The higher your symptoms are, that means the higher your state of fight or flight or freeze or shutdown is. It is a reflection of the state of your nervous system. And the more you are in a state of fight or flight or freeze or shutdown, your thoughts are going to reflect that. The state you are in is going to drive the story in your mind because the mind is going to try to make meaning of this. And I just think it's so important to name that because I don't care who you are. You could be thriving in your life, but if you experience intense sensations or emotions or anxiety, your thoughts are going to reflect the state that you are in. You're going to get thoughts that are fearful, that are more sticky, maybe more catastrophic, hypervigilant, racy, low. You could feel more frustration. You can have thoughts that are telling you that this is going to last forever. You're going to find it harder to be in the present moment because the present moment kind of sucks. Your mind is going to take you into the past and you're going to have thoughts reflecting back on how you were doing better before this flare happened. Your mind's going to be wanting to go into the future and projecting the current situation into the future. Your mind is going to want to tell you that what you're feeling right now, it's going to play with that. It's going to play with, is this going to last forever? It's going to look for certainty on how long it will be here. This is normal. This does not mean that you're failing, that you've done something wrong, that you caused this flare, that it's your fault, and that you are in a setback, you are regressing in your recovery, and something's wrong. None of that is true. Even if your mind is telling you that, it is a story. It is so important that we have awareness around this because this is what it's going to get us through a flare, is this awareness. And there's going to be times where even accessing that awareness is going to feel really hard. To be curious, to be the witness, to zoom out and observe. When things are really high, that logical part of your mind, it just goes offline. It's like when you're in the middle of a panic attack or you're experiencing a grief bomb. You can't just suddenly zoom out and disconnect from what is happening, it's going to be a lot harder to do that. You can't do that all the time, 100% of the time as a human being. You just can't. And especially when things are really, really intense with your sensations and your emotions and your symptoms. So, what do we do? And I want to talk about a little bit of my experience over the holidays. There has been a lot more on my plate, and there hasn't been as much time for me to slow down. And I've lost a lot of my routine, like most of us during this time of year. There's just been a lot of extra lifey things that have been going on and a lot more for me to navigate. So naturally, my stress levels, my allostatic load has been rising. And I woke up one day and I had an uptick in symptoms that I have not experienced in a very long time. And my first reaction to them, to this happening, to me experiencing stuff I have not experienced in a long time that used to be very, very challenging to experience in the past. And it reminded me of this time in my life where that was the norm, these things that I was feeling. To have that come back, my initial response was surprise. These were things that I thought I would probably never feel again, that this was far behind me, that I have gotten so far in my recovery that I won't experience that anymore. My initial response was surprise and fear. This is so human, you guys. Like, I want to say this is so human. I don't care who you are. When things come back that you have not experienced in a long time, or maybe you are experiencing these things often, but they're kind of, going up and down in intensity. When they go up in intensity and they get really loud, or they come back after they've been gone for a long time, your initial gut reaction is going to most likely be, why is this happening? And oh my God, is it back? Is this going to go away? And there's going to be fear. There's going to be fear initially. It is the first initial response that happens. What we are responsible for is the response after that first response. That's what matters. So if your initial response is, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. Why is this happening? Am I in a setback? Am I failing? Not again. Oh no. If that is your first initial response, that's okay. Don't worry. You haven't done anything wrong. You're a human being. Just like everybody else. You're a human being. It's a normal response. You are already in a higher state of fight or flight. So yeah, your response is going to reflect that initially too. That's okay. It's normal. But what we do next is what matters. And having been just going through this myself, I've noticed the same thing, right? Those thoughts kind of came in and they were so tempting. They wanted to grip me. I wanted to go into these old behaviors of like getting reassurance and trying to make meaning of it and try to figure out why this happened. And my mind was just going into those places initially. And I know why, because it's a protective response. Your mind is going to try to make meaning of a flare because it wants to try to prevent it from happening again. So if we can figure out why it happened, we can prevent it, right? It's that search for certainty. It's resistance. You're resisting the state that you're in, the flare that's happening, the unpleasant sensations, and of course you're resisting them. They suck. Like, it sucks and it's hard and nobody wants to be in that place. So you're going to initially resist it, and that is normal. What you need to start moving towards next is the surrender and the acceptance and allowing your experience to be what it is right now. And it is not easy. It's hard. And I just got reminded how challenging it is because I haven't experienced some of these things that I just did in a while. And these are things that some of the stuff that rose up for me were things that I experienced, when I was going through a lot of trauma coming off medication. Some of the symptoms, there was some stuff that just was old, familiar, and it reminded me of that time in my life. And initially, my mind wanted to try to understand, why is that happening? It doesn't make sense. And it wasn't easy for me right away to get to that place of acceptance because this is a practice. The goal here isn't to be perfect. I wasn't right away like, oh, there that is. It's fine. I accept and I can allow it. No, like that's not what happened right away for me. My initial response was, why is this here? And fear. And it's taken practicing what I know to get to that place of being in more of a surrendered, letting go, allowing response. Just having the awareness that this is normal, that I am feeling this way, that I'm having more thoughts that are in the past or projecting in the future. That's normal. That's okay. The more I kind of could just accept that this is normal and not judge myself and not expect myself to be perfect at navigating this, that already was starting to lower some of the pressure and intensity and move me towards acceptance. So, what have I been doing and how have I been responding once that initial response happened, that initial fear, shock response came? I've been slowing down and reducing pressure. And the first thing I did to reduce pressure was I just named this to my family. I told them I'm having an uptick in symptoms. I'm experiencing some stuff I haven't in a long time. So right now, I might be a little all over the place. If you see me crying because I have a bunch of grief coming up, I'm okay. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to fix me. I'll get through this. Like, that's it. Just letting them know where I'm at and just give me some grace right now. And just asking for that has already reduced a lot of pressure for me to show up any certain way for anyone. Right now, my goal is not to fix anything. I just need to meet myself where I'm at. That's it. Just meeting myself where I'm at. I've also really slowed down and backed off of social media and a lot of that extra stimulation and input. I don't need more of that right now. I've had enough going on internally. There's already been a higher intensity lately for me of emotions and sensations. So I can lower the intensity in other places outside of me right now too, because that is the name of the game. It's just about connecting to more safety and lowering the stakes and going into more ease. I know that right now, going on social media and having all this extra input and seeing, I can't control what the algorithm's going to show me, right? I could be scrolling on my phone and suddenly I'm going to see, something about like a war somewhere, or I'm going to be reading something about some sad story, or I don't need any of that right now. I don't need any more intensity coming in right now to my nervous system. The intensity has already been higher. So anything that could just soften that intensity, that's what I'm doing. More just giving myself lots of grace, slowing down a little bit, doing a lot of nothing, doing less, and just being. That's how I'm responding. But I'm also still showing up and engaging in my life. I'm not staying super small and avoiding everything and not leaving my house and not engaging with people or not doing things that I normally would do. So, for example, I'll give you kind of an instant, a situation that happened one of the days and how I handled it and how I responded. And this is when I was experiencing something intense. One of the things that I've been experiencing that I haven't in a long time is crying spells that just kind of seem to be happening out of nowhere. Just grief coming up and I'm like overcome with it and crying. Sometimes I can kind of maybe there's some thoughts or some stories or things I can connect it to, but sometimes it's just there and there's no story. And that's actually even better because we don't need to attach to any story when we're crying. We just need to allow the crying to come up and complete. And where do we feel in our body? It doesn't need to be in our mind. So I've been having a lot of emotional charge rising right now. And This is something I used to experience a lot, and it used to scare me. Like it really used to scare me because I would feel like I had no control over my emotions. I felt like I was getting completely hijacked by my emotions for quite a while in the earlier stages of my recovery. And it felt really debilitating. It would be exhausting and it scared me. I didn't like it. I didn't like I had no control over this. Like at any given moment, I could just be sobbing. And I didn't like that because it was embarrassing and I would judge myself. So having be something that has been not happening for so long to come in and start happening again, there was at first some fear around that. And there was one morning where I woke up and I just was having all this grief. I started crying. I felt very, very sensitive emotionally. I felt really vulnerable. I felt fragile, and this really intense emotion was rising up in me. And I noticed my thoughts around it. And I noticed there was fear. And I also noticed that I was having a lot of judgment of myself, like critical thoughts. Like, wow, you're really losing it. What's wrong with you? This isn't normal. Like, you shouldn't be acting this way. This shouldn't be happening. And again, these were just thoughts that were a reflection of my state. And I was able to zoom out and see that happening. And I actually had to take my daughter to an orthodontist appointment, and we were going to need to leave the house in like 15 minutes. And here I was, like in the middle of this big wave of grief and intense emotions. And there was a lot of physical sensations that were happening at the same time. And I noticed this urge to revert back into how I used to respond when that would happen in the past. And when that used to happen in the past, and this is just one example, okay? So this could be anything. This could be pain. This could be any symptom. It could be anxiety. It could be a panic attack. It could be, a digestive symptom, like whatever. It could be anything. This is just my example. And in this moment, what I was experiencing in an intense way was actually an emotion. It was grief, and it was paired with some physical sensation too. In the past, my response would have been, I can't take her to her appointment. I can't do this. I can't handle it. This is too much. Something's wrong. Like, I am not okay. And I just can't show up in my life. Like, I'm overcome with this. This is taking over. And this is going to be a horrible day. Like, I'm not going to be able to do anything today. That would be the thought and the story that would rise when I would be having this happen in the past. And this time I noticed that same story started to surface. Those same thoughts started to come in. But the difference is this time at this stage in my recovery, I was able to be aware of it as just a story. And I think because I've gotten a lot better at letting thoughts kind of pass by and not believe them and not get so wrapped up and tangled in them and think that they are truth, I was able to see it for what it was and let it go and change my response. And this time, my response was, I'm experiencing a really intense amount of grief right now. And I also need to take my daughter to this appointment. Okay, well, I know this isn't dangerous. It's very uncomfortable. It's very unpleasant. And it feels really intense. But I'm just going to bring it with me. And I'm going to take her to the appointment. And if I cry the whole way there, and while we're at her appointment, if I have to keep like going into the bathroom and sobbing, okay, I guess that's what I'll do. It doesn't make me a bad mom. It doesn't make me a bad person. It doesn't mean I'm a hot mess. It doesn't mean anything other than my nervous system is in this state right now. There's a lot of grief coming up, seemingly out of nowhere. And it doesn't mean anything other than this is just what's happening. And I can still move forward and do what I need to be doing, which is taking my daughter to this appointment without judging myself for what I'm experiencing. And dropping that judgment and giving myself permission was huge. Huge. This has been something that has been so helpful for me time and time again in my recovery. When I can accept the worst case scenario, I always end up finding peace. And it's not easy to get there, and it's taken a lot of practice, but I was able to do that. I was able to accept that I might be a blubbering, sobbing mess while I drive my daughter to this appointment. I might feel like I can't handle it and I'm just gonna die from crying this hard. Or I might just be totally embarrassed in front of everybody at this appointment because I keep going into the bathroom crying. When I just decided I'm okay with that, that's fine. I can let this experience be whatever it's going to be. When I reached that place of acceptance, what ended up happening was I drove my daughter to the appointment. I didn't cry the whole time. I didn't actually cry. I just started to feel more peace with what was happening. Did all of my symptoms and sensations and emotions just vanish? No. Like, I still felt uncomfortable. But the fight was over. I dropped the rope. When you can accept what's happening and you give yourself compassion and you don't judge your experience and make meaning of it, and you can truly just let it be what it is and not allow it to mean anything about you as a human or in your recovery. It doesn't even mean anything about my recovery. It's just my state. And it's okay. I'm a human. I can have this happen right now. I don't have to like it, but it can be here. When you can get into that place and you drop the fight, you stop suffering. And what happened was I stopped suffering. I still felt uncomfortable. I still didn't feel great, but I was okay with that. And there wasn't this internal battle of resistance and trying to feel or experience something different than what I was. So I wanted to just give you guys that example of how I got into that place of acceptance and how that shifted, not by me wanting it to shift, but by me actually being okay if it didn't, being okay with it being whatever it was going to be. That was the key for me to stop suffering with it so much. It also really reduced the fear of it because I had all this fear that if I went and I was a mess and I was crying or I didn't feel like I could handle it. There was so much fear attached to it. But when I was able to accept that happening, it lowered the fear. And then I was able to just carry on and go and do it. And actually, after the appointment, I felt like, you know what, we're out. I have some other things that I need to do while we're out. So we went and did some other errands and did some other things. And I just kind of remained in this totally open, curious state of surrender and just being willing to experience whatever was going to happen. Fine. That is so key to recovery because when you can get to that place where you are just going to let whatever your experience be what it is, your nervous system just starts to regulate more on its own. You don't have to regulate it. It will take care of itself. It's just trusting your system to get there on its own when you just get out of the way. And that's exactly what was happening is I was just getting out of the way. Other things that are really helpful to do when you're in a flare and something I've been focusing on lately through this one is just more rhythm. This time of year, we lose rhythm because we lose a lot of our schedule and our routine, and there's a lot more that gets put on our plates, and everything just feels kind of more chaotic this time of year. So just anchoring and grounding into rhythm is a great way to help bring safety to your nervous system. And it's just simple stuff like getting back into my rhythm of things that I normally do outside of the holiday season, which is movement, going out and taking a walk. This is not a time where I am pushing myself with activity. I'm not going and doing like a bunch of weightlifting and trying to really, hit new records or anything like that. I'm just doing nourishing, gentle movement right now and getting outside, getting into nature, engaging with other people, doing more just relaxing activities like puzzling and reading and playing games with my family, cooking a nice meal, making sure I'm eating a nice breakfast, eating lunch, eating dinner, not skipping meals, just anchoring back into some rhythm is really key because that's been kind of out the window lately. So I know that that is a container for my nervous system right now. Just the rhythm that you create in your day is a container that holds you. So I've been getting back into that. Noticing any tendency or any temptation to analyze or look for certainty, just being aware of that and kind of clocking it like, oh, yep, it's doing it again, looking for certainty, looking for reassurance. I don't have to be perfect at making sure that I'm not getting sucked into that, but overall, the majority of the time, I'm letting a lot of those thoughts pass. And if I notice myself getting a little bit more pulled into them, then just being aware that I've gotten pulled into that a little bit more, that future thinking or any catastrophizing or any trying to make meaning, and gently redirecting back to the present and what I'm doing right now, because there's nothing I need to do here for this to pass. It will on its own in its own time. And when you're in a flare, there's nothing you need to fix. Again, it's just accepting where you're at, meeting yourself where you are, allowing as best you can. And if you're not able to allow and you're noticing resistance, then just allow the resistance. Accept that you're resisting. Keep anchoring into things that are bringing you joy, engaging in your life, and having rhythm. It'll all shake itself out. We're designed to heal. You don't need to do anything here. All you really got to do is work on getting out of the way and trusting. And it can be really hard to do that because it can feel scary when you're really feeling intense sensations and emotions. But it just comes down to that trust that there is wisdom and that belief that we are nature, we will heal. This will all regulate itself as long as we are not doing the behaviors that are going to keep it going, which is the Googling and the seeking reassurance and the avoiding and the catastrophizing. All of that kind of stuff is just gonna keep it sticking around longer. So just notice that stuff and try to stay away from it and out of the way, and this will all shake out in its own time. And just keep holding on to that truth and reminding yourself of that. So I hope this has been helpful for some people. You're not alone. I've talked to many people who are experiencing some harder things right now in their minds and in their bodies. And even, people that don't typically have chronic symptoms are feeling more burnt out or experiencing things that they don't normally experience. It's okay. This is a temporary time, and it's a great opportunity for you to practice and learn from this. Practice engaging in what you can, practice moving towards surrender and acceptance, practice not judging yourself if you can't get there right away. Practice more compassion and slow down. Don't stop. Don't stop everything and avoid. What I mean by slow down isn't just go crawl in bed and stay there and just lay there all day. No, I mean slow down with the thoughts, slow down with any pressure, get outside in nature, slow down with your use of technology and input. You don't need all of that when you're in a flare. And you're going to be okay. You already are okay. You just don't feel it and know it yet, but you are. And one reframe that's been so helpful for me to see a lot of what's I'm experiencing symptom-wise or emotionally as a good thing. I think it rises up for us to heal. When we experience this, we get to practice this work. Having the flare is a great opportunity to practice your response. And it's when it's harder to practice that. So the more you can practice in these situations and see them as an opportunity, and I know sometimes it's annoying to hear that. Like I used to hate hearing that, you know. Oh, it's an opportunity. I'm just like I don't want this opportunity. This sucks, you know. But it really is. It really is. You can see the flare as something that is going to propel you forward. Because if you're responding with more acceptance and surrender to it, and you're allowing it to be what it is, and you're dropping any judgment of it and of yourself, you are doing some really good healing work right there. You are creating some new pathways in your brain and your nervous system. You are creating a new pattern. And you might not see it yet or feel it yet, but I promise you, it will pay off. It really will. And it's exciting. You don't feel it right away, but over time, you start to realize that it was really the way forward in your recovery. It was the way out. So I hope this was helpful. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or just where you're at. And if you liked this video, please be sure to share it and subscribe. And I will see you guys next time.